There it is.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're covering becoming stronger in a down market today on November 17th, and we're going to start off with how to close 10 deals between now and the new year. What happened in the real estate market over the past 2.5 years will likely never happen again in an agent's real estate career. It was unprecedented, it was profitable, and it was a fluke. There is no point in wishing that the market will return to the days of subpar listings getting 30 offers, half of which were significantly over asking price with few, if any, contingencies. Remember, the market doesn't determine your success, it determines your strategy. And this is kind of the saying I'm seeing around these days, and I really like it. We still have 1.5 months left until the end of the year. That is a lot of time to make a lot of success happen. If you preserve, oh, realizing that looks like it's a typo because it says if you preserve, and it's got to be persevere and have the right strategy. Weird. I'm realizing there's something off there. Let's talk about perseverance first. You will not succeed in this new market without perseverance, the continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition. And I can tell you all, after doing this almost 21 years, I think that perseverance is a huge key to every real estate agent's success. You've got to have that. You've got to be willing to do that. So definitely one of the top things. But never giving up and continuing to push forward does not mean that you have to grit your teeth, tense your body, your mind, hustle until you burn yourself out or grind until you've got nothing left to give. It won't be about the hours, but rather the focus and the effort. When you relax and apply the right pressure to the right things, you will create more power. Perseverance is about understanding what you are willing to do to succeed when the going gets tough. Below are some strategies that will help you succeed in today's market, but you must be willing to put in the work despite setbacks or opposition. So I guess, does anyone have any comments at this time before we get into the 4 key activities? Okay, so number 1, sign something. Did you sign a listing agreement? Did you sign a buyer broker agreement? Did you get something in writing with signatures that moves your business forward? It's a simple yes or no answer. And number 2, did you sell something? A contract is a contract. Did your buyer make an offer that was accepted? Did your seller accept an offer? Did you put a property under contract and send it to your closing department or transaction coordinator? In our world, a pending counts as one of the 4 agreements. That is something that our agents can help control. Getting to the closing table has many other variables that are often outside your control. Remember, we're focused on the activities that, if done consistently, move the needle of your real estate business. And when you have enough pendings in your pipeline, if 1 or 2 don't close, it makes a minor impact on your overall business. So I think we'll pause after the first 2, see if anyone has any questions or comments about the first 2 activities, about signing something or selling something. These are easy things to measure. And I think that, yeah, it is a reminder that just in general, the more stuff you have going on, the more buyers you're showing or more pendings or more seller prospects you have going on, then when you have someone back out of a deal or decide not to sell or whatever, it's not quite so heartbreaking, right? Because you know you've got other stuff going. But a big part of that too is that it just takes time to build up the pipeline so you have more stuff going on. And so then it's not so heartbreaking too. Okay, number 3, set an appointment. We all know that an appointment can get pretty subjective if you don't define what that means. We do not consider meeting an old college friend for coffee or attending an open house as an appointment. An appointment is when you're meeting with a customer or client where the opportunity to sign something, a listing agreement or buyer broker agreement exists. I think that there's a little bit of gray area in there too, in between that, right? Because I know we talk about how it's great to have coffee, drinks, or whatever with friends, that trying to bring it around to real estate at some point and finding an opportunity to ask who they know that's considering a move, or however you want to ask the question, but basically asking for them referrals can be helpful too. So although it's not an appointment, if you're able to get a name and get an appointment from that, well, then it was a worthwhile appointment as well. Adding new contacts to your database. Your database and how you serve the people in your database matter. Research from Keller Williams for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent shows that for every 12 people in your database, it should produce 1 closing if serviced correctly. Whether you actually add 1 new contact a day or not, the real focus here is adding 5 new contacts per week. Despite all the new technology and frictionless ways of doing business, real estate is still a relationship game. Contacts are key to building your business, and your Met database is your business. Or I've also heard it called, real estate is a contact game or sport too, because it's all about the contacts and really the relationships that we can build from those contacts. So any questions or comments about the last 4 items? Set an appointment or add new contacts to your database.
I mean, like for me, I think my minimum is at least 4 prospects a week to try to get into my.
Yeah, I can't remember what we set for you to meet your goal. Was that what it was?
Yeah, and so no, I mean, like trying to get, and I feel like I've definitely like warm people. I feel like I'm closer to that, but no, it makes sense.
Well,
it's
sometimes
just meeting people,
just meeting people is important. And then the other thing is, it's a numbers game, but sometimes, maybe it's going to take you 60 contacts or whatever, and it's not going to be until you're working on the 50th or the 60th contact where you actually get a real prospect, right? And so that's where you just got to realize sometimes it takes a little longer than you would hope or plan.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Is like when you read this and it says you meet 12 people in your database that should produce 1 closing. But how long? I mean, what?
I think this was in 1 year. Yeah, I guess
year?
It doesn't say it, but that's usually what we're talking about.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is kind of a good number, 1 of every 12.
Okay.
But those are, you actively reaching out. So more so than just a monthly email or monthly physical mailed newsletter or something. Would it be more like you doing pop buys or phone calls, more personal touches, are going to lead to that. Do either of you have anything to add? Okay. So we'll move on to afraid of getting ghosted, 7 tips for keeping client relationships alive. So have you ever been working with a buyer, showing them several properties, and then suddenly they stop returning your calls? How about a seller who you are working with to prepare to sell their home, and suddenly when you call, all you hear are crickets? Ghosting in personal relationships is when someone cuts off all contact without warning or explanation. It's common, but it's not acceptable, and it's really a form of conflict avoidance. I completely agree with that statement. When someone ghosts you, it's not a reflection of who you are. Rather, it shows what kind of person they are. Being on the receiving end of ghosting can feel humiliating, but remember that if anyone should feel embarrassed, it should be them, not you. And so he's got some, or actually, I guess Leslie has 7 tips here on how to minimize ghosting. Number 1, send a video intro. And I've been hearing about these. These seem to be the thing that are out there. Establish a face-to-face connection at the beginning of the relationship. Once the client feels like they know you, they are less likely to ghost you.
Bomb months ago sent a thing in like email about doing this, and even had examples that you can go on their website of what people said for their intro, so you could have scripts.
Okay. And I know there's probably lots of other samples out there that could be found too.
Yeah, no, and I definitely, everyone I talk to says this. I mean, mortgage brokers do it.
Yeah.
They've done it to me.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what people
And the thing
want.
is, it doesn't have to be like a super fancy, it can just be a quick thing done in your car or
Mhm.
wherever you're at.
Mhm.
Hi, so-and-so, I'm looking forward to meeting you at such and such property tomorrow at 2 p.m. or whatever. And then you just send that video via text or however you're
Mhm.
communicating with them. So it doesn't need to be a big, long produced thing, just a quick little video. So do any of you think you might try that out? Okay, Jessica, were you raising your hand, Haley?
No, I was just gonna go unmute.
Oh.
I mean, we've talked about how much I like can't stand doing videos of myself. It's like super uncomfortable, but I do think that they're effective. Like I've received them from people and it feels way more personal than a text or even a phone call. It feels like less formal than a phone call. And I feel like the less formal your relationship is, like still professional, but not as formal, I feel like that builds a better connection, a better personal connection, which is, I think, what she's getting at, that like,
Mhm.
if they feel like they actually know you and that you're not just trying to sell them something, I think they're a lot less likely to ghost you.
Yeah. So if you're going to try it, then you'll have to let us know how it goes.
I have to once I get my showing okayed, I'll try that today with my buyer that I'm gonna show tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll just do a quick little, and she likes text, so
Oh, okay.
video and.
So you did the more than 24-hour notice, but you still just haven't heard back yet.
Mhm.
Is there a tenant?
Mhm.
Okay, that explains it. Okay, so number 2 for minimizing ghosting, call clients. Don't just email or text, pick up the phone. People do business with those they know, like, and trust, and it's easier to build that relationship if you talk live on the phone or via video chat. And I do totally agree with that too. Like Zooming with people it's really effective these days. Or just Facebook. What is it? Not Facebook. FaceTime. Yeah, it's FaceTime on iPhones.
Mhm.
And there's probably some sort of app people can use if they have Android too,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. Number 3, ask the right questions and qualify your client. And so I think this is also very helpful. Find out what is motivating them to buy or sell, and if they are serious enough about their why to do what it takes to move forward and the financial ability to do so. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right when. And so if you know their why, then you can help them find the when. Talk with all decision makers. If you talk with one owner and they haven't talked with their spouse or partner yet, it's easy not to pick up your call and avoid the subject. When making your appointment, be sure all decision makers will be there so you can answer everyone's questions. I think I made that mistake early on. And so now it's one of my questions when I'm setting up the first appointment with potential sellers, like, they need to have like a really good reason if their spouse isn't available. And sometimes it may just be, oh, well, he's not really concerned. I'm the one that really makes all the decisions or whatever. Then I'm kind of always like, okay. But I kind of go with that because I know that is the case sometimes, but yeah, there's got to be a good reason. Otherwise, it can be kind of a red flag that maybe they aren't really serious. I've seen that. Sometimes they just might be getting a second or third price opinion or something. And that was why, like in your situation, there were just several things that kind of happened that made me think I wasn't really sure what was going on. Number 5, explain how you get paid. If a buyer or seller thinks they cannot afford your services, they might find it easier to avoid your call than to tell you that to your face. Once you explain you're only paid from proceeds after a successful transaction, you can take that off the table. I agree with that too. Number 6, address the elephant in the room in advance. This is a moment of awkwardness that can ease the situation later if it is not a fit. Simply request that they be transparent instead of ghosting if they decide the work relationship is not a match, and assure them you will do the same. Ultimately, your priority is to make sure their needs are met in one of the largest transactions of their lives. Show them you care about them, and that increases the odds they will be fair with you. And sometimes I'll just end something with like, oh, well, please let me know either way, whatever you decide, I would just rather know, you know, something like that to assure them. So I'm not necessarily telling them, but kind of in a way, letting them know it's okay if the answer is no, I would still just rather know, you know?
I was just going to add that by doing that, like by asking them to just, you know, be honest with you, if you can tell they're on the fence, especially, it saves you wasting time too, because they might, you know, some people just might like you, but not actually want to work with you. And so they'll continue to work with you until they really have to go a different direction. And then that's just more time wasted when you could be spending energy on something that's actually going to make you money.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I feel like that's why sometimes if I'm kind of feeling like they might be on the fence or undecisive or whatever, then I try to kind of give them an out.
Right.
Or let them know they've got that out. I would still just rather know, you know, and I think it helps. Okay. Number 7, move on and don't take it personally. And I know this is hard. In The Greatest Salesperson in the World, author, I don't know, Og Mandino says, I will persist until I succeed. You can move on, but you don't have to give up on that person. You can move them to a less frequent contact list, send them newsletters or other information of value. And I would add to that, that's automated, so you're not spending time on it. And let them know you are ready to help them when the time is right. You may also want to go door knock to see if they're okay. While you're there, you can knock on a few more doors in the neighborhood and focus your time on finding a new client who is motivated, ready, and hopefully not afraid to communicate. Have anything to add to that? I guess just as a reminder, you know, the Boosh CRM has drip campaigns you can use, so you can automate. You can customize them. You can create your own. So those are available.
I just finally figured out how you can customize it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was trying to do well, I wanted to see if I could add something like just anything, and I didn't think you could. And then
Okay, so did you watch a tutorial about it?
no, I just happened upon it, like looking at it, and it's like, oh, you can adjust the pictures. You can change out the pictures if you want. And then I was like, oh, you can actually add stuff just like you do on your website.
Yeah, like the newsletters,
Yeah.
the email drip, everything is customizable. And so just don't forget that there's also tutorials available on Remax University. You can just in the search bar type in something and then it'll bring up everything that's applicable. Or if you're ever in a real pinch, you can always call product support too, or create a ticket or all sorts of things. So there's lots of support available. Okay, we'll move on to the final topic. Is now a good time to buy a home? The most common questions we currently receive really sets the stage for whether we add value to potential clients or not. The question is this: is now a good time to buy a house? Our ability to provide fact-based information so potential buyers can make the best decision for themselves is critical to our success in the current market environment. And I've totally seen it in the past too, like for sure. David Childers, president of Keeping Current Matters, says an agent's job is to educate the potential buyers and to provide them with the best possible information available, not to convince them to do something they don't want to do. He says there are 2 main questions shaping buyers' opinions that we need to ask. The 2 questions are, what do you believe about interest rates? And what do you believe about real estate prices? The following includes answers to these questions and how to provide information in a professional, organized way that leads to value-driven client relationships, not just today, but for a lifetime. And I think that's an important point because, of course, if their answer is no for now, right, but they feel like you added value, you provided information, you didn't push them, then they're more likely to come back to you in the future when they do feel it's the right time. So again, it's all about just building relationships and kind of building your pipeline for the future. What do you believe about interest rates? Although much of the messaging potential buyers are hearing may be sensationalized, The best thing agents can do is to provide factual information for their clients in regard to interest rates, Childers says. He states the first step is to define reality. As the chart below shows, mortgage rates have risen from 3.2% at the beginning of January this year to nearly 7% at the end of October. This represents the fastest rise in interest rates in 50 years. And then the graph is included there, so you can see that. When sitting with someone, I want to show them this to acknowledge the fact that this change has slowed the number of home sales. This is one of the main factors leading people to ask whether they should buy now or wait. This is the point where we can provide our relevant market perspective based on fact, not based on what someone said or what they heard, but based on what experts are saying about interest rates. The next step is to provide information on what experts are saying about the future of rates, like the following quote from Mark Fleming, chief economist with First American. Per this quote, rates are expected. Oh, oops, I guess I didn't. I better pull up that quote. I'm just now realizing I didn't put that in here. So let me pull that up really quick. Sorry about that. Let's see. The quote is, while mortgage rates are expected to, and I'll add this in an email to everyone so you get this quote. I'll revise this. While mortgage rates are expected to continue to drift higher over the coming months, much of the rapid increase in rates is likely behind us. Nationally, while month over month house prices may decline, annual house price declines are not expected given the ongoing supply-demand imbalance and continued strength in the labor market. And I think, yeah, it was talked about during the office meeting that I attended a presentation by Matthew Gardner last week, and he pretty much said something very similar too. So, you know, we're hearing that from multiple places. And so per this quote, rates are expected to continue to move higher in the short term. Why is that? It is all about inflation right now. It's the Fed's fight against inflation. The Fed doesn't control mortgage rates. They can only hope to influence them through Fed policy. That policy of fighting inflation through raising the Fed funds rate has been a catalyst for the higher mortgage rates we've seen. As the Fed continues to raise the Fed funds rate, we will continue to hear experts predict that these actions will lead to the likelihood of recession in the next 12 months, as noted by this chart polling economists conducted by the Wall Street Journal. And so then there's that little chart showing about is a recession around the corner. This leads to the question, how have recessions affected mortgage interest rates in the past? This is a slide Childers shared that shows that mortgage rates have gone down every time over the last 6 recessions dating back to 1980. And then there's that graph showing that they do come down. The question is timing, and no one has a crystal ball, but the logical path to helping potential buyers decide if now is the right time for them to buy is to be able to provide a path to an understanding of where we are with rates and where the facts point that we might be headed. The fact that rates are predicted to drift higher in the near term provides potential buyers the opportunity to lock in their housing expense now. The process of buying now hedges against rates, hence monthly mortgage payments going higher, and it provides an opportunity through refinancing to be able to lower costs should rates come down. Ultimately, they will decide if now is the right time for them to buy or not. But with good information, people make good decisions for themselves. Provide the best information possible, and you will create a client relationship for life. So that covers mortgage rates. Do any of you have any questions or comments on that section?
I've noticed a lot of people in their listings are talking about just assume so they can get the buyers assuming their mortgages. I've seen like a bunch of like listings saying assume our 2.35.
Oh, okay.
Too. So,
and I just hope that they have really checked to be sure they're assumable, because I have been hearing, That was a topic during the Matthew Gardner presentation, and he doesn't really foresee that being an avenue.
This doesn't, when you refinance or something like that, I mean, that's hard, assuming, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that there's many of us that really have assumable mortgages. So that's why I hope those agents and sellers have really gone back and checked their paperwork to make sure that they are, because Matthew Gardner was saying he doesn't really think that's a good avenue to be trying. And then there was also talk about seller financing. And I mean, I know we have our seller financing transaction, but those are extremely rare. And so you can always inquire, but I think that Matthew Gardner isn't expecting those to necessarily increase much either. And I guess what I'll say too is after I add that quote that's obviously important, I'll just email you all the Word version of this, because in there you'll be able to actually access these pictures and charts, so then you can use them yourself if you want to. I want to make this as easy as possible for you to be able to use, because these graphs and visuals are really helpful. Is any other questions or comments about the rates so far? I've got to plug in. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. What do you believe about real estate prices? The next big question is what you believe about prices. The biggest challenge facing buyer sentiment is the headlines that can at times be exaggerated to capture attention. This can lead to a distorted view of what is accurately happening in the market. Finding what the experts are saying about the market and future predictions regarding home prices is another way to bring a relevant market perspective based on facts to your potential clients. The chart below shares the average home price forecast for 2023 from the Mortgage Bankers Association, the Home Price Expectancy Survey, the National Association of Realtors, Fannie Mae, and Ivy Zelman. And then that graph is on the next page. The highest forecast for 2023 price appreciation of the five being from the Mortgage Bankers Association for 2.8%, and the highest forecast for depreciation being from Ivy Zelman being 4%. The average of these five forecasts is for a 0.2% rise, basically flat in 2023. While every market is different, based on these predictions, most markets are predicted to be slightly up or slightly down regarding average prices in the coming year. Although there are some predictions for depreciation next year, I don't believe we should shy away from that. Most predictions then call for appreciation in 2024. And I guess what I will say is that I think I mentioned this in the office meeting, but it just as a reminder, since we're specifically talking about home price forecasts again, I want to bring up what Matthew Gardner had said just last week about our specific area, right? Because that's what he focuses on. He's expecting prices to maybe continue to decline for now and into 2023, which wasn't originally predicted. But, our whole housing market has come to a much drastic slower stop than was predicted to. And so that's why now predictions have to be updated, right? And so he's predicting that prices may continue to come down through the first quarter and maybe even into the second quarter. But then when interest rates dip down due to the recession, right, as we were just reading, we can expect interest rates to come down. Then he expects activity to increase and prices to go back up. And so in general, he's expecting there to be appreciation from 2023 to 2022, which we've seen from 2021 to 22 as well, right? But it's just that in between, we're going to see fluctuations and it might continue to come down.
I have a question. In 2020 and in 2021, appreciation was about 20%.
Yeah,
right.
15 to 20 a year.
And normally it's what, 8%?
Yeah, it's more in the
5 to
single
8,
digits.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So having this increase for 2 years, I mean, that's a hyper market.
Right. And that's why everyone was saying it wasn't going to last.
Right.
It couldn't last. It was unsustainable.
So letting people know that they had gained so much equity in those years too, would that be?
Well, or I think the better way to approach it that's kind of being talked about is like there's some people now that, and I mean, I know I have people that I'm working on this with where they think, oh my gosh, I should have just listed back in March or last year because now I've lost 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever the number is that they've kind of calculated in their head, right? And yeah, some people may continue to focus on that, but what we can do is remind them of how much they've gained, right? Well, hindsight's always 2020. You know, we knew it was unsustainable. We just didn't know when it was going to drop. It's dropped now. So this is then where, and you know, this conversation is more about buyers, but it's the same for sellers too, right? When is the best time to sell? Well, that's going to depend on their why and their plans and what are they really looking to do. If they really need to relocate out of state or they really need to upsize or whatever, well, then now may be the best time, you know, but trying to remind them that they haven't really lost anything, they've still made gains. And then that's where maybe you can go back and take a look at the stats and pull up, well, still in the last 2 years, you've gained 200,000 or whatever it is, right? And so trying to focus on the positive rather than the negative. And some buyers and sellers are realistic and do that anyways, but I'm just saying for those that are kind of focused on what they've lost, try to remind them of what they have gained. Because in general, probably almost everyone has gained, you know?
I was thinking about this earlier too. So because of all the over askings, right? That kind of, is that what really kind of changed, like giving that 20% increase of appreciation because people were, and then you're doing your CMAs and of course prices, people are paying $100,000 over.
Right. So that's why the inflated prices, as some people call them, including myself, were, it was just due to demand, all the demand. And the whole thing is now it's not like demand's gone, but it's definitely diminished, you know? I mean, just yesterday in the Seattle King County Realtors board meeting, there were 2 other managers of offices up and they were further north than us. So I think that's probably why, but they're still seeing some multiple offer situations. So some houses up in the Seattle and Bellevue area that are priced right, they are getting multiple offers. So I think it's just further proof that it is all about pricing. Pricing is key right now, you know, and that is something that's kind of on my list to cover in December or January, because pricing properties right now is one of the most important things. It does not work to overprice at all. And so that's where I would honestly say that if you're taking a listing and it's overpriced, then it's best to have a plan for price reductions. And like my listing in Tacoma right now is a great example. You know, he went, what did he start? Gosh, 150 to 100,000 over what I wanted, but we had a plan in place of price reductions. You know, we've already done one, we're doing another one today or tomorrow, and we have a plan. You know, my other listing in Federal Way that I know you've heard a bit about, you probably saw that expire because they were dead set on, nope, if it doesn't sell for this, then we're not selling now. We're going to sit and wait until next year. So, yep, that's what we're doing, because people aren't going to pay more for a property than they feel is fair right now. People are trying to make smart decisions. They're compromising much less than they were over the last couple of years, which is why it was easier as buyers agents. Buyers were willing to make lots of compromises, but they aren't now. Pricing is very important.
So for us too, like making sure that we do CMAs for our buyers to make sure that they're not buying something overpriced.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just like kind of always, because I mean, even back then, I mean, I was doing kind of market analysis for buyers, but then it was kind of a guessing game of, okay, well, what is an appraiser going to appraise this at? What are other buyers going to bump it up to and all that? Whereas now it's kind of the opposite of, okay, unless it's a brand new listing. If it's a brand new listing, then you'll still want to do a market analysis, but this is again where it's always good to try to see, well, how many other business cards are there? Check the showing time activity stuff, because that'll all give you an idea too, because that's part of the market analysis, right? Is how much activity is there. But if a listing's been on the market for a while, then yeah, you can do your market analysis and see, I mean, buyers are getting closing costs or using closing costs to buy down the rate, all sorts of things right now. Do either of you have anything else to add? Okay, so. Oh, we were just pausing, talking about prices. Okay, so moving into the next session then on pricing. Okay, yeah, so we're saying that although there are some predictions for depreciation next year in 2023, Childers was saying, I don't believe we should shy away from that. Most predictions then call for appreciation in 2024. So the conversation then can lead to the alternative. If you decide not to buy, then you will need to rent. And this chart shows the rise in median asking rent since 1988. And this chart is interesting, right? It's like, it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, wow. Rent versus buy. So this is another reason why I want to make sure you guys have these available to use, because these are really good. According to Childers, the true crisis in real estate today is the rising rental rates. As an agent, your ability to know and share how much a rental will cost monthly versus a mortgage payment in your local market is extremely valuable information for potential buyers. When a fixed rate mortgage locks in your monthly housing expense, rental rates have historically risen, and a renter today can reasonably anticipate higher monthly costs in the future. This perspective provides another consideration potential buyers may not have considered. Every market is different, so understanding the factors affecting potential home price increases or decreases in your local market is needed. But by providing the information above, you will have given your potential buyers the opportunity to make their decision based on factual information from some of the most knowledgeable professionals and organizations in the business. Although we usually focus on the financial aspects of buying a home, there are also decisions on home ownership that are not solely based on financial decisions. This leads to the next set of considerations. And so the final ones are, why are you considering buying a home? The decision to buy a home is extremely personal and mostly driven by life events like marriage, a new job, a new baby, aging parents moving in, or whatever the case might be. These are often the factors that drive the decision to buy a home. Once we understand why are they considering buying a home, oftentimes not fully motivated by pricing or the expense, then we are able to provide them with the information needed to help them make that decision. Home ownership has always been a foundational component of the American dream. It provides a sense of security and control that renting cannot provide. These non-financial factors affecting the desire of a potential home buyer are often overlooked. Until you fully understand their motivation to buy, it will be difficult to be the agent they need and deserve. And so to wrap it up, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments. So is now a good time to buy a home? The answer to this question is different for every person or family considering buying, but the need for agents to bring value through helping their clients make that decision is more important now than ever before. Now is the time to educate yourself and become the most knowledgeable agent in your market. Now is the time when your clients need your professionalism. They need you to be the best agent you can be. Childers closed with one thing that came out of the pandemic is that people want to own a home. They want their spot for themselves and their family that they can call their own. Never forget that home ownership is so much more than units and prices. At the end of the day, it's about the American dream. And by the way, most people in this country that have been able to build wealth have done so through home ownership, providing the best information possible and guiding them toward the best decision for them and their family will never be forgotten. And yeah, wealth hadn't really been talked about much here, but that is a big part of it as well. It's a way to build equity and then buy a bigger home in the future, or buy a second home or investment property, or maybe help children in the future buy a home, all that sort of stuff. So I mean, I feel like all of these topics were really helpful, but especially that last one really does a good job of helping us answer that question of is now a good time. Anyone have any other questions or comments?
I don't have anything specific to add, but I think this last section especially is like super prevalent just in like my daily conversations and stuff. Like, I mean, especially if I mention that I'm in real estate, but even not, it's just like a really hot topic right now. And so like having the specific numbers and having, you know, expert opinions on it and being able to convey that to other people, I feel like is a really good way to build trust. So I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Do you have anything to ask or add, Chris? Oh, yeah, you're
Nope,
muted.
there.
Okay.
No, I'm just kind of following along, and it all makes sense. It's a lot, you know, a lot of this is stuff I've heard before, so having it all put in one spot is good too.
Okay.
And I just really try to develop a personal relationship with all of my clients. So like when you're talking earlier about the Keller Williams, the real estate, what is that book? I can't remember now.
$1 Million Real Estate Agent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
the
we
Millionaire
do
Real Estate
like
Agent.
12 to 14 touches a year per client. Yeah. So that's just what we try to do. And so we do the drip, we do the call. I always send birthday cards, Christmas cards, you know, I do all that stuff. So
yeah. And I know in the past Costco's had like a large amount of cards for a good price. So has anyone seen them this year yet? I've been kind of avoiding the Christmas aisles so far.
I'm just trying to think of, I should do a postcard or if I should do a handwritten card.
Oh, you're kind of breaking up, Chris.
Sorry, I think I was talking over you.
Okay, I
Can
think
you
you're
hear me?
back now. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Even Home Goods, they have box sets of cards. They're kind of hidden in the craft section, and they're really inexpensive. And they have every card you can think of.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for the tip. Yeah, I do think the holidays are a good time to really send a card and handwrite in it with a personal note and add a business card. So, you know, like I do a lot of postcards, but the holidays are a good time to, I feel like, personalize things. And then sometimes you can add a business card or two. I mean, really sending 2 or 3 business cards is best so that they have one to keep and 1 or 2 to give out. Anything else? Okay, I guess I'll stop the recording.